I think it's a given thing that people want to agree, all right, with the idea or the notion that life isn't easy, right? But how affiliated or how much of an affinity is there in us for living that reality? In that the word of the Lord tells us, he who shall not pick up his cross daily and follow me is not worthy of me. But it astonishes me time and again to see persons being so casual and flippant about life to the extent that it doesn't even unsettle them or unseat them to any extent that they have no cross. So, a couple minutes ago, I was looking at an interview, not interview, but speech, being made by Riri during her acceptance of the Harvard Humanitarian Award. And interestingly enough, she had a lot to say about the status of health in the world and all that sort of thing. And, the fact that she has the Claire Lionel Foundation, which is, geared towards improving the existence of the individual who is suffering health-wise. But I want to go a bit further than Riri to say that we have the power. And interestingly enough, she alluded to that in her Harvard speech, because we do. And at the end of the day, this is something I'm going to parallel with what J.K. Rowling had to share during her speech at the Oprah on her success and billionaireism, my word, which is that he is not far from any one of us. I remember when I was growing up in school, I was going to the St. Joseph's Convent, and a friend of mine, a classmate, she was a bit indignant at the fact that I was reading Harry Potter books. I mean, I was always an avid reader. But she was like, Odell, and I can understand, even when I was in primary school, Westmoreland Junior School, there was this girl who was like, Odell, Christians aren't supposed to, believe in magic and that kind of stuff. And I was hurt because I had just been sharing that I had, seen the Disney's remake of the Cinderella story prior to the one which Lily James took part in 2015. But the one which Brandy and Whitney, okay, and Whoopi Goldberg took part in, which was quite some time ago. So when I had seen this production and had shared it with classmates, it was on the court, on our court that day, this other girl was like, Odell, shame on you. And I felt really hurt and taken aback, as I did share before, that was the sort of reaction. Now I know that I think there's a certain country, a very, very big country, that banned the Harry Potter books, but Harry Potter saved J.K. Rowling's life. J.K. Rowling went through hell, okay, got into a marriage, it was bad, and while the Word of God tells us that, it is good for a woman not to leave her husband, and that a woman can indeed, by being a virtuous woman, help to turn her husband into a better man. That woman has to know who she is in God first. So J.K. Rowling was clinically depressed and, identifying with Harry Potter and living out her struggles with dealing with the death of her mother, which happened when she was 25, placing that emotional conflict and working through that in her work captivated millions. I will quote what she said, death, dealing with death, I might be paraphrasing, but you'll get my idea, is on every other page. Harry Potter is an unassuming orphan who ends up realizing that he is so much more than he ever thought he could be. And that's a universal concept. That is why J.K. Rowling has a net worth close to $1 billion, went from feeling like a beetle, in her own words, to insane success, and this is because she had to deal with what? Feeling like the least of us. Okay, she shared the poverty she had to experience. She shared that, it was her daughter who she loved and wouldn't trade a thing for. Even the fact that she had an awful marriage was not enough to make her resent it, in light of the simple fact that it produced her blessed daughter. So at the end of the day, we cannot shun pain. And it is this embracing of pain that gives us life. Interestingly enough, Oprah mentioned that Michael was reviewed in a sort of less than positive aspect, to the extent that it was said that he was chasing, in her words, from an article she read, he was chasing the phenomenon. And essentially, that he felt he had to talk Thriller. Now, we all know what Thriller was. We all know it was such an amazing, elusive success as an album, as, something pioneering, a new frontier in terms of the video, in terms of all the concepts that are artistically kind of, really, really, just given to us in that feat. So that what is kind of being reflected on now he has passed on is that he wasn't satisfied with that achievement, to the extent that he was constantly looking for something greater. Now I'm going to share something that links to some things that I would have shared prior to now on my Bryla Braxton or Nofar page on Facebook, which is that there are three things that give us life, right? As C.S. Lewis tells us, that connect us to the hopes of having our forever Narnia. Recall that Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy all went into the wardrobe, and that at the end, if you follow along with the chronicles, you'll find that sadly, Susan did not end up in that Narnia when Peter, Lucy, and Edmund all died in the train crash and ended up there. Because she lost that connection to that which inspires and motivates and keeps us going and grounded, and connected to that hope. But I'm going to tell you something. And listen really carefully. Michael Jackson was always paranoid. He was always paranoid that he would die. He did not have hope. Let me tell you what he had. He had faith and he had love. But I'm sorry, he didn't bring it together. And that is why he did pass on. He touched 1 million lives, and 1 million is just the opposite of a hyperbole. He touched mad lives with his music and with his generosity, but he didn't have it all. Now listen to this parallel. Whitney Houston, well, she's not comparable to Michael in any way. Or is she? You see, she had something Michael didn't have. She didn't have that much faith or love. No, we know this. But she had hope. Listen to The Bodyguard. Listen to what's the sense of trying hard to find your dreams without someone to share them with. Tell me, what does it mean? I want to run to you. This is from the soundtrack to the film which she starred in alongside Kevin Costner, as we all know. Now, in her earlier years, Whitney was, vapidly a model before her career took off. And the funny thing is that Whitney has a voice that's very arresting. If you want to journey back or forward chronologically in your mind to when Michael had the Michael Jackson 30th anniversary celebration, the likes of Shaggy and Rick Rock performed, Usher, Maya, the then Destiny's Child, Liza Minnelli, Gloria Stefan, and the guy that sang just once, James Ingram. So my point is this, is that at that celebration, he kind of would have, been heralded and all of that. But interestingly enough, Whitney kind of started the show because Usher and Maya did a performance, began the performance of Wanna Be Starting Something. But Whitney brought everyone to their feet, essentially, because when she came out, I believe in me, you believe in you. You know, at the end of the day, that's what happened. So what I'm saying is this, is that while Michael shone and excelled, in people's hearts there was something missing, which is kind of why, you know, a bit sardonically, he was, you know, spoken of or referred to as the self-proclaimed king of pop. You know, and some people had problems with his narcissism, but there's a very divine merger in the idea of bringing the faith and love that Michael had into a consummation with Whitney's hope. Now, Whitney passed on, and so did Michael. And I recall that in People magazine in 2009, there was an advertisement for the Oprah Winfrey Show, which was still running before Oprah began to focus all her attentions on her network. And in the show, she was talking about these two great people. And for someone who has grown up always with a thirst for that which musically and artistically satisfies, I have to say this: without hope, we have nothing. And that actually, it is critical to embrace the truth that hope travels far. So, Michael Jackson, great man, great entertainer that he was, one of the world's best entertainers, humble as he said at the end of his life and all of that. Of course, we know in Black or White he was like, I had to tell them I ain't second to none, and all of that. But, interestingly enough, J.K. Rowling is a writer, not an entertainer, per se. Huh? J.K. Rowling grosses nearly $1 billion, as I mentioned, but Michael's net worth never eclipsed around 500 million. People, the pen is mightier than the sword. I expressed in an article just last night that the sword, in a literal sense, is violence. But do you know what violence is? Violence is me first. Violence is I matter the most. It's all about me. Passion, entertainment, that is the sword. And Michael championed that in his life, so much so that he was commented on as beginning to show his humanitarian side around the onslaught of This Is It. And, you know, at the end of the day, the vulnerability which only the experiencer of the slums and pains of life that Jesus asks us to embrace can relate in a piece of writing that can move and inspire is at the end of the day more powerful than saying, I'm bad. You know, at the end of the day, asserting oneself takes a second level in comparison with the truth of being a teacher. The pen, the thing that can change lives, because the sword ends life. The sword says, you don't matter, I matter. Yeah? But the pen says, I want to help you. I want to educate you. People, the pen is mightier than the sword.